Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, ma'am. So we are from Group 6. Today we are going to present our material from Chapter 8, which is about metaphorical meaning in discourse. With me, myself, Dianda Putri, and my friends.
Hafiza Ilma Putri.
Lumintan Manurung.
So I hope this session will help us understand how metaphors work in language and daily conversation. And in this presentation, we will cover several subtopics that will start by Hafiza. Hafiza, time is yours.
Okay, in this chapter, we focus on figurative meaning or non-literal meaning. That means we'll look closely at metaphor and metonymy, and introduce important theories like conceptual metaphor theory, aka CMT, and supports the view that metaphor and metonymies are not merely linguistic expression, but also reflect underlying conceptual processes. So through this chapter, the example, like we will use real life example, like from politics, television, music, and everyday talk to show how figurative language help us people, events, and experience in different way. So this can affect how we think about things in society and culture. Next slide, please. We begin in the first part, which is what is a metaphor? So the word metaphor comes from Greek, which is meta meaning carry, meaning over, and phrein meaning carry. So it will meaning to carry over. It means carrying meaning from one thing to another. Metaphor describes something by comparing it to something else. For example, time is money. Time is not literally money, but comparing time to money to say that both are valuable and shouldn't be wasted. So, in a metaphor, meaning is transferred from one idea to another. Metaphor is also clever ways of speaking and change how we think. For example, when we say I'm drowning in work, they don't mean they literally in water, but they feel overwhelmed like someone drowning will feel. Okay, next slide, please. The next we have concept and domains, which is this is two important terms. And a concept is a mental image or idea we have in our minds. For instance, when we hear the word chair, so we automatically imagine what a chair looks like in our heads. Meanwhile, a conceptual domain is a group of related ideas. So when before I say chair, the conceptual domain belongs to bigger domain, like might include the legs, seat, backrest, or something to sit on. In metaphors, we map ideas from one domain called the source domain onto another called the target domain. For example, in computer virus, we understand the idea of harmful computer as target domain by comparing it to a real virus in the body. Like we have known the virus is separate and it damage. Uh, we combine with the computer. So the qualities of a real virus, its traits, like I said before, and the image are carried over to help us understand the impact of the computers. Okay, I think next, please. Okay, we move to the conceptual basis of metaphors. So, metaphors is also reflect how we structure and understand abstract concepts like emotion or mental health. We can draw one more concrete physical experiences. For example, like when someone said feeling down or in high spirit, show how we conceptualize emotional states using vertical orientation. This expression reflects a broader conceptual metaphor like good is up or bad is down. So, according to Lakoff and Johnson in 1980, this metaphor has a physical basis. When people are ill or sad, they tend to lie down or display slumped posture. Meanwhile, when people are happy, is typically associated with standing upright. So over time, these bodily experiences influence our mental frameworks, and are reflected in language. This also demonstrates that metaphor is not just decorative language, but part of the way we part of the way we organize knowledge and experience the world. I think that's all from me.
Okay, thank you, Hafiza. Now let's talk about novel metaphors. So a novel metaphors is a type of metaphor that it's new, creative, and not commonly used. And it's different from the usual metaphors like Hafiza mentioned before. Like we hear all the time, like time is money or life is journey. Those are conventional metaphors. That is very familiar. But novel metaphors is different. It surprises us. They make us think differently. For example, that we have here, the shop was hiving with people. This sentence used the word hiving related to behave or to describe a shop full of people. It paints a picture of people moving around like busy bees. And this is not a common way to describe a crowd, so it feels new, creative, and original. And then why are novel metaphors important? Because they make language more alive. They make language more alive and expressive. They can show how someone feels, what they think, or even their attitude. And then they can show how someone feels, what they think, or even their attitude, like us told you before. And then mostly we can find them in poems, songs, speeches, story, and casual conversation. And also even in jokes to sound funny or smart. But there's the thing, because these metaphors are unfamiliar, and we sometimes have to stop and think to understand them. We cannot directly to understand them because it is metaphors, and they're not always easy to get it right away. That's what makes them interesting. And then I have another example. For example, my thoughts are tongueless spaghetti. So spaghetti here is not literally mean spaghetti that we can eat food. But here the person compares their thought to spaghetti, meaning they are messy and mixed up like spaghetti. It is a funny but clear image, even though we don't usually describe thinking that way. So in short, novel metaphors is a fresh, creative, and unexpected idea. They make our language more exciting and help us see things differently. Next slide, please. And then now let's move on to extended metaphors. What is extended metaphors? An extended metaphor is when a single metaphor is used, not just in one word or sentence, but through several lines, paragraphs, or even a full story or speech. We will often find extended metaphors in speeches, poems, and literature, comedy shows or stand-up routines, and motivational talks or like TED Talks. For example, in a TV show like Scrubs, a character once said, you've got your hard shell chocolates, your flaky chocolates, your naughty chocolates." Here, he's not really talking about chocolates. He's talking about people and using chocolate types to describe different personalities. And this is an extended metaphor. It start with one idea and then continues with more example built around it. And then why we use extended metaphors? It is to create a strong lasting image, to help audience understand complex or emotional ideas, to make it easier to understand. And then it also adds emotional or dramatic effect to make the speech or writing more persuasive or memorable. And then it also helps people remember our point and sometimes to be funny, moving, or even dramatic. And then another example for extended metaphor is my life is video game. Some levels are hard, sometimes I lose, but I always try again. And here, the metaphor life is video game. Video game here is extended through several sentences. It helps the speaker express struggle and motivation in a fun and modern way. So in short, extended metaphors is one idea that explain in many parts, and they can make our message clearer, deeper, and more powerful. And then the next slide, please. And the next we were going to talk about metaphors in political discourse. So in political speeches, metaphors are powerful tools to frame issues and influence opinion. These metaphors are often repeated in news headlines, political campaigns, social media posts, and interview or debates. In political speeches and news reports, metaphor are not just for style. They are used as tool of influence, as I mentioned before. Politicians, journalists, and media creators use metaphor to shape public opinion, frame an issues, or influence how people feel about a situation. For example, that we have here is a swarm of migrants. It means people are insect. Here, the word swarm is a metaphor. It makes us imagine insect, like bees or locusts. This kind of metaphor creates a negative image, suggesting that the migrants are dangerous, overwhelming, or not human. But in reality, they are just people. And then why this metaphor matter? Because metaphors like this are powerful. They can make people fear, anger, or hate. And also it creates us versus them thinking. And also they can make policies or action like border control or war seem more acceptable. And when they are used again and again, people might believe them without questioning. And this is how metaphors can spread ideologies, beliefs, or ways of thinking. Often without people realizing it. Another example for these metaphors is the economy is on life support. What does that mean? This metaphor is compares the economy to a patient in the hospital. It makes people think the situation is serious or close to that, and this might influence how people vote or feel about the government. So, in short, metaphors in political discourse is not just a language, but it is a powerful tools. They can inspire, but they also can manipulate. So that's why we need to be critical and be aware of the metaphors that we hear. So I think that's all from my part, and the next part will be continued by Lumintan.
Okay, thank you. So the next slide is metonymy. So metonymy is a figure of speech where something is referred to by something else that is closely related or associated with it. So metonymy is when we don't call something by its actual name, but instead use a related word that is closely connected to it. Unlike metaphor, which draw comparison between two different things, metonymy stays with the same conceptual domain. It relies on association, not similarity. For example, the crown stands to the monarch, not the actual object, but the institution or person who wears it. The next example is Hollywood. This refers to the entire film industry, not just the physical place in Los Angeles. And the next example is the pen is mightier than the sword, means that writing or ideas are more powerful than physical words. Here, pen stands for writing and sword stands for violence or military powers. Types of metonymy relationships. Metonymy Metonymy can take different forms depending on the type's association. Here are common types. Part for wool. This is when a part of something is used to refer to the whole. For example, all hands on deck. Here, hand refers to the people or crew members, not just their hands. And the next is cause for effect. In this case, we refer to the cause but mean the result. For example, he drank the whole bottle. Of course, he didn't drink actual bottle, but mean it's the content inside it, like water or wine. And next is tool for user. Sometimes we mention an object or instrument to refer to a person using it. For example, the saxophone was incredible tonight. We are really talking about saxophone player, not just the instrument. Place for institutions. This is very common in political or official contexts. For example, Downing Street issued a statement. Downing Street stand in for UK government of the or the Prime Minister office. It's not the street itself making the announcement. Each of these examples show how metonymy relies on the close connections between concepts that we often take for granted in everyday language. Okay, the next is metaphors and metonymies. Metaphors and metonymies can blend or reference each other in real discourse. Metaphors and metonymies don't always work separately. They can often appear together in real discourse and even strengthen each other's meaning. A great example comes from the TV show Friends, a moot point. The priest plays on metonymy. Moo reminds us of a cow, right? But it also acts a metaphor, suggesting that something is pointless or doesn't matter, just like cow's opinion. It's funny because it blends both ideas in creative and unexpected way. Now let's look look at some real world example in politics. A metaphor like waves of migrants frames immigration as something dangerous or un, un, uncontrollable, like neutral disaster. A metonymy like the White House said use a location to stand in the US government. And the next, let's see, in media and entertainment. The show Dragons then uses an extended metaphor portraying business negotiation like battles or survival challenges. Pitching an idea becomes fighting for investment. Internet memes also combine metaphor and metonymy, using humor, image, and shared cultural reference to make criticus or jokes that people instantly recognize. This blending shows how metaphor and metonymy help shape how we perceive and talk about the world often without us even realizing it. So, in conclusion, metaphors help us understand abstract concepts by linking them to more familiar experiences, such as viewing time as money or anger as head. Novel and extends metaphors and creativity and emotional impact, especially in media and literature. In political discourse, metaphor can frame public opinion and reinforce ideologies like describing immigration as a flood. Metonymy, on the other hand, work within the same conceptual domain, using something closely related to the represent another, such as the crown, referring to the monarchy. Both metaphor and metonymy often interact to create layered meaning in discourse. Recognizing how they function allows us to better understand how language reflects and shapes our thought, culture, and social realities. That's all for me. I give it back to the moderator.
Thank you for all the member of this group for giving the great presentation. So that's the end of our presentation. Thank you so much for your attention. Thank you so much, ma'am. And we hope that our explanation was clear and useful. And once again, thank you so much. And last I say that Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.